Everyone is muted right now. I ask that you all stay muted until the end of the meeting when it's time for questions. But yeah, we're going to get started. I don't know about everyone else. It seems like we have a lot of interest in the topic of artificial intelligence. I myself am very interested. I've been following up on a lot of the news that's come through. Some of it I find really interesting and exciting. And some of it I find, quite frankly, terrifying. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot more about this topic. Paige, on behalf of the BCT, let me just start by thanking you. And I'd really like to also thank Sherry Coopers for bringing this topic to our attention and for facilitating us getting Paige to host this presentation for us today. Okay, so Paige, whenever you're ready, let's see. Voluntold. Well, either way, thank you very much, Sherry. I do appreciate, and I hope I didn't butcher your last name, Prupus. I hope I didn't do too bad with that, but thank you so much for your assistance. And Paige, whenever you're ready, feel free to get started. We have 39 people on the line. That's excellent. Okay, I'm sorry, let me give you permission to share. And also, I thought you were unmuted. Are you still having trouble with that? I guess so. That's what you said, right?
Okay, now you should be able to hear me.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. You know, technology, it's great most of the time, right? Give me 2 seconds and you're going to see my screen pop up, and I'm going to move the gray boxes out of the way so you don't have to see. Good morning. The coffee's kicked in, so you ought to be in for a fun ride. So here we go. So AI, I'm going to talk to you today about ways that you can use AI. I'm not here to talk about any kind of, I'm not the expert. I'm just the enjoyer is what I call it. I'm going to be using something that I will talk about, and this is called Gamma app. So the next, as soon as I get this to work. There we go. So we're going to talk about ChatGPT specifically and its impact on higher education. And we're also going to use it in how it's reshaping the administrative landscape. So the overview to ChatGPT, ChatGPT is a large learning language model, which basically means that someone fed a computer a tremendous amount of text, and then the computer analyzed the text. And when you put in something to ask it a question, it has all of this information that it can come back to formulate an answer and give you the answer based on what it has been fed. I'm going to turn off my camera because I talk with my hands and you don't need to see me waving around. So this is basically a very short version of what ChatGPT is. So speaking of administrative tasks, so what can we do with ChatGPT? Email management, sorting through countless emails can be a real pain, and ChatGPT can help you draft professional emails, which frees up your time to focus on more pressing tasks. It can also help you with information retrieval. So you can categorize, label, and it can help you figure out a filing system that you can use to create an organization that helps you with all of the information that you have to process. It can help you with taking minutes. And if you want to put minutes into ChatGPT and ask it to give you a bulleted summary, it will do that. It can also automate expense tracking and reimbursements. It can give you templates for that as well. So we're going to take a look at a couple tools. We're going to look at ChatGPT. We're going to look at Gamma, which is what I use to create this presentation. We're going to look at Visla, which actually will make videos for you. And then Otter AI, which is a way for transcripts to be made from videos. So let's take a look at ChatGPT first. I'm going to move my stuff around again because I have 17,000 windows open. And we're going to go over here. And hopefully you can see my screen. Yep. Okay. So this is the ChatGPT. Looks very basic. Doesn't look like a whole lot, but it does a whole lot. So, and as you can see, I have lots of things on the left and the right. I have prompts. I have all kinds of things that I use. So ChatGPT, basically, if I want to simply, it is going to ask you to log in with an account. You can use your VCCS email account. It needs to be, it's easier if it is a Google account. So it's better if you use your @email.vccs.edu email than your Outlook email. So one of the things that you can do is if I want to type in here any kind of prompt, create a 5-day workout plan for a 53-year-old female with minimal. Okay, so again, crazy prompt, right? And I'm just going to hit enter. And you can see that it very quickly comes up with a workout plan. Now, I just randomly put this in and I put in a couple things, and I'm going to talk to you about prompt engineering. And, you know, he's ChatGPT, I call him a him, it, whatever, it's an it, but whatever. I like to give it a personality. Says that I am a language, you know, it tells me that it's not a doctor or a fitness professional. So, and then it just gives me a very quick something that I can do in order to have a little workout plan that took me no time at all. So prompt engineering, which we're going to get to, is a very key piece of being successful when using an AI. Gamma, which is now what I'm going to show you. Gamma helps you create presentations based on whatever you want to put in to the prompt. So now I'm over. Gotta move things around one more time. And now you can see we're in Gamma. So if I want to create a presentation and I'm in a pinch, and if I click on create new and I click on this, I have several things I can pick from. I could actually create a document, but I'm going to click on presentation. And I'm going to click on a proposal for a service, and then I'm going to put in here instructional design, and I'm not going to put anything else in. And I will click on the little arrow that gets covered up by all the other AIs that I have. And then it's going to give me a bulleted list of an outline. I can edit this as well as add or delete from this. When I'm finished looking at it and I've made whatever changes I need to, I can click on continue. And then I need to pick a template, and I'm just going to go with that one. I'll go with surprise me. And then I'll click continue again. And now you can watch it create a presentation based on the outline that I gave it. You also have tools over here on the right, if you can see them, that allow you to add slides or to card templates. You can edit with AI. You can add images, you can add templates, you can embed videos, you can also embed apps and web pages. So this took about 30 seconds. Now, is it great? No. Would I have to, if I ever wanted to use this? Absolutely, I would have to look it over. But it does give me a nice layout for what I want to do. Again, makes things a lot quicker. You can change the images. You can click on this. You can go over here to a web search. You can also ask it to generate a new image with AI. Notice that it automatically put the information. And then if I click generate, it will generate an image based on the text that is in the box. Not a fabulously wonderful image, but it's kind of cool. And it's something that is not found anywhere else. So that is Gamma. The next one I want to talk to you about is Visla. And I'm going to give you a copy to all of the presentation, and you will be able to click on the links and go visit these websites yourself. So this is Visla. So you're going to input your idea, and then you're going to ask it to create a video. And it's going to create a video. There we go. And if I click on create video, I can put in any prompt, create a video to introduce college students to the proper uses of GPT. Okay, there's my prompt. And now I'm going to go down here to click generate video. Now it's going to take a minute or so, maybe 3 minutes, to create a video. The video will have a script. It will be customizable. This, by the way, is free. Gamma is free. ChatGPT is free. Yes, you can upgrade all of those things to a quote unquote pro license. But these are the things, if you wanted to ask it to do, these are the tasks that you can use it for to speed up your productivity. I also am going to, like I said, we're going to go over prompt engineering as soon as this video completes. I'm going to go back over here to the presentation while it's thinking. So these are the tools, and Otter again is something that you can look up, but I want to get on to the prompt engineering because that's the fun part. So I went ahead and I gave you 25 ChatGPT prompts that you can use to get yourself started. So as you can see, and you read through the list, write a professional email template for communicating with staff and colleagues, create a comprehensive schedule for my daily tasks and appointments. It's going to ask you some questions on that. You can also ask it to be certain people. You can ask GPT to respond as a different kind of professional. You can ask it to respond, let's say, as a science and engineering professor. You could also ask it to write something for a specific age group or a specific community group. You can ask it to do these things, and you put that in your prompt. So these are some sample prompts that you can use kind of to get started. As you can see, I won't scroll too fast because I know you're reading. These are just this is a small representation of the things that you can ask it to do to help with productivity. And again, you can ask it to write a letter of recommendation. The caveat here is I don't put any personal identifiable information into ChatGPT. If I'm going to ask it to write for a specific student, I just put in student in brackets, and I do not name the student or anybody that I'm writing an email for or to. Again, you can use just very generic things that then you can reformulate and finesse in order to make them more personal, but it gives you a starting point. And a lot of us, when we're doing a lot of things over and over, our tasks become very redundant and our responses also become very redundant. One of the things that ChatGPT can help you with is getting out of that same response, and allows you to be a lot more creative and helps the creativity and the brainstorming. You can ask it to brainstorm with you, and you can ask it to you can ask it questions as in the form of a kind of a debate to help you kind of like get your ideas kind of flowing, and so that you aren't feeling like the robot. And it really helps, again, speed up the process and makes things a lot more interesting. All right, I'm going to pop back over here to Visla, and I am going to play this video that it created. It is a 1-minute video. I did nothing but put in the prompt that you saw.
Generative AI is a powerful tool that can create new and unique content. It can be used to generate realistic images, music, and even text. In the field of art, generative AI can inspire creativity and push boundaries. It can assist in designing new products, generating visual effects, and much more. Generative AI can also be used in research to simulate and model complex systems. It has the potential to revolutionize various industries and improve efficiency. However, it's important to use generative AI responsibly and ethically. Respecting copyright, privacy, and avoiding biases are crucial considerations. By understanding the proper uses of generative AI, college students can leverage its benefits. With creativity and responsibility, generative AI can unlock endless possibilities.
So, again, kind of mind-blowing that I put in that very simple prompt and there's a video with a transcript. Again, let's go back and talk about prompt engineering. So prompt engineering, it's a job already. It's going to continue to be a job. And I'm going to give you this little cheat sheet. So you can ask it to be a model or a mode or a role. So you can ask it to find as an intern, find a research topic on. It can generate ideas. It can edit and fix text. It can also teach me about, and it's going to give you the little prompt next to the modes and roles. It can create code. It can make tables. It can create reports. You can also ask it to respond with certain tones. When I'm using it to help me create responses to discussion board posts, I ask it to be warm and friendly. If I need it to respond to an email, I might use professional and persuasive. You can ask it to write in certain tones. So also, how to build a chat prompt with an example. You can ask it to give me a summary of the document, and then you can copy and paste the text into ChatGPT. You can also ask it to give you a summary of an article or a video with I'm going to show you some Chrome extensions. You can ask it to change the tone of the answer that you've sometimes me specifically may be in a hurry, and make it sound more professional or make it sound more friendly. And then you can ask it to convert an answer into text. So you can actually give it steps and make each step part of the same prompt. So then below that, you have some prompts for marketers and coding, designers, sales, research, customer service, and some general prompts. So that is an example of prompt engineering and some ideas to kind of get you started when you're starting to write your prompts. Oh, maybe not. That's interesting. Oh, there we go. Okay. So again, I'm trying to give you ideas and prompts so that you can take this presentation right back to your desk and sit down and have some ideas of prompts and how they can be used. So efficient communication. So if you're looking to maybe have a sample email response for handling a difficult inquiry and you need help figuring out the wording and making it sound either less abrasive or maybe you need to give good information with some difficult information. You can use ChatGPT to help you create the response. Do you have to copy it word for word? Absolutely not. And should you copy it word for word? Absolutely not. It's used as a launching point so that you can use your time more efficiently. And by using ChatGPT, it helps you to, number two, increase your productivity. So it can automate repetitive tasks, which allows you to spend more time doing other things, as well as write and polish anything you've already done. So a lot of, I had a gentleman who's on the Germana board who uses ChatGPT to help with his writing and his polishing of content that he wants to publish in magazines. It is his original thoughts. However, he said he loves the fact that now he can do things in a lot less time because he doesn't have to spend his own time trying to polish the content or reword things, and he's using ChatGPT for that purpose. It can also help you condense information and change it away around for marketing purposes. So if you need to make a social media post and you want some ideas on how to make it for Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, because each of them have their own specific parameters on what you can and how many characters you can use ChatGPT to help you with that as well. You can also use it for giving me the five takeaways from an article, and you can copy the article, or you can use a Chrome extension to summarize the article. You can put in data if it doesn't have personal information, and you can ask it to analyze the data and make a summary of it, as well as some takeaways from whatever you put in it. Again, I've already talked about the brainstorming piece of this. You can ask it to create for you ideas to what to include on how to use ChatGPT at work. That's the prompt. So it helps you kind of get out of that, where you're stuck and you're like, I've already done this. I don't want to do it again. And I'll be honest, because I've done so many of these presentations on AI, I don't want to keep saying the same things over. So I'm using ChatGPT to help me come up with different ways that I can present this information. I see a question. Yes, and workforce is something that is going to need to start figuring out how to use ChatGPT as well. This is not just for classroom, this is for all work. And the research is coming out is saying employers are expecting students and new employees to understand AI, how to use it, when to use it, and to ethically use it. They are not forbidding it. It is not, the Pandora's box is open. So it is definitely something that is not going away. And then we can also use it for research. So one of the caveats for ChatGPT 3.5, which is the free version, is that it only has information up to 2021. So anything that's happened between 2021 and now is not going to be found in ChatGPT 3.5, which is the free version. So that is a limitation on the free version. However, you can use Bing, which is attached to your Microsoft Edge browser, which will use ChatGPT 4, and it is connected to the internet and can give you more recent information as well as articles, and I will show you Bing shortly. There we go. So these are some more AI tools, and I want to talk to you about the Chrome extensions, and I'm not sure why my GIF is not playing there, but that's technology. Chrome extensions, specifically Merlin, Scriber, and Cider. Merlin is a super handy tool. If I go to, let's just say, and I click on the main page, and this is Merlin over here. And one of the things that you can use Merlin for is to, and this is also a Chrome extension here, you can ask it right within your browser to help do whatever you need to do. Again, these are free, they don't cost anything, and they are right within your Chrome browser. That's not a very good one, so let me go here and click on this. And you can see Merlin shows up as part of the search bar when I was in Google. Let me go back because that's easier. And if you notice, this is Merlin, and Merlin is giving me an answer to the question or to the summary in the Google search that I asked. You can ask it a new chat as well as anything else you need to. If you want it to use it to summarize an article, all those are sponsored. Here we go. Now you can see this is one of the beauties of Merlin. This is a very long article. If I go over here to summary and summarize, it's going to give me a summary of the entire article. It will generally do it in bullet points as well as, yes, you can upload a document. It's a little longer blog, so it's taken a little bit longer. So now I have an entire summary of this article that I can scroll through. At the top, I have the ability to copy that and put it onto a document so that I can review it for later. You can obviously pay for Merlin if you'd like. You can change the languages and all of those things as well. So this is a nice little tool if you want to use it for summarizing. If I go to YouTube, and I click on a YouTube video. Oh, that wasn't a video. That's not what I'm looking for. That's an ad. Okay, this is, oh, wait a minute. That I could summarize the article, but you can also ask it to summarize a video. So here's the summary of the video. If you want to summarize it, I have two choices and two different Chrome extensions that I can use to summarize the video without having to watch anything. It's a nice way to get an article or to watch a video and have a script. You can also use that if you have a Zoom meeting, and you can ask it to summarize a Zoom session. Oh, and we don't want to hear him talk about his dog. So those are Chrome extensions. So the next thing I'm going to show you is Midjourney, Firefly, Canva, and Ideogram. These are tools that you can use to create images based on text. I'm going to go to Ideogram. So I'm just going to give you some images, and you can see that you can type in your text, and then you can ask it to generate an image. So these are some of the images that you can see that people have created. It is public. They are original. Sometimes you can see some very interesting things. You know, pretty blue girl. There you go. Again, typing in whatever you want. Now, while we're here, I do want you to notice that this is a fake image of Tim Cook giving a presentation of an Apple slide in the background saying, give me money, give me your money. But it is not a real photograph, but it is very realistic looking. So you can ask it to do those things as well. And again, this is where prompt engineering really comes in. If I wanted to have a, let's see, I have no idea. Actually, I'm going to put one more thing in here because I don't want it to be, I want it to be a cute grizzly bear. I could have put cartoon in there as well. But again, it takes a little bit of time, and it's going to give you 4 options. And then from those 4 options, this is also free, by the way. From those 4 options, you have the ability to ask it to create variations based on those. This would be my favorite one. So I'm going to click on this one. And you can see that image was created really quickly. And if I go up here to the top right, I could remix this image based on that, or I could remix based on any of the others. So that is one of the tools. Firefly, which is an Adobe product, will do the same thing. Canva has one as well. The most well-known one currently is Midjourney. However, Midjourney is not free. It is a paid subscription that is in Discord that you would have to create a Discord account and use it. However, the other 3 are browser based, and you could use those as well. The next 2 are writing assistants and Grammarly, which I'm sure everybody's heard of. And as you can see, it is up here in my browser, in my as a Chrome extension. Grammarly is a writing assistant. And Grammarly Go is a new addition to Grammarly that is an AI that helps you reword emails, change the tone of an email. It can also help you with papers and doing editing in either Word or in Google Docs. And Jasper is basically the same thing. There is a free version of Grammarly as well as a paid version. And again, that's probably the most familiar. The last 2, I've already showed you Gamma, but another presentation AI is one called Beautiful AI. Beautiful AI is a little bit different than Gamma. And you, again, Beautiful AI is something that allows you to create presentations. It's, again, you can, I don't want to start the tour. Anyway. So you can see, it'll give you a little tour. It will help you build your first presentation. Again, there is a free version as well as a paid version. So the benefits and opportunities of generative AI and all of the AI tools that I've shown you, it allows for, it's kind of like your own personal assistant. So it allows you to work efficiently. You know, Google will give you a lot of articles that you have to kind of filter through. However, using ChatGPT, it helps you to put all of that information together. You can dump your raw thoughts into ChatGPT and ask it to give you a summary as well as suggestions. It can talk about pros and cons of things. However, it will not give you an opinion. It will not talk to you or give you compare and contrast. It will give you some of those things, but there are limitations. And one of the things that I'm finding as the more I use it is that's how I'm figuring out my prompt engineering and what exactly I want to say when I'm writing my prompts. And so it's one of the things that the more you play with it, the more you learn about it. And then you also learn the limitations and the advantages of using it. So give me, for example, give me 5 creative ideas for small thoughtful gifts to give employees on their birthday. Again, is that cheating? No, it's just being helpful. It's also talking, the next thing is below you'll find the meeting transcript from a meeting. Please summarize it into 200 words and then put it in the form of an email to send out about priorities. And then you can paste the notes there and it will do that for you. It also will translate if you ask it to. And again, is it accurate? Maybe. So, but you can ask it to give you a translation, and it'll also ask you to unearth additional information from research that's done in other languages. So you can figure out all of the pieces of the puzzle and put all of the information together to help you make the best decisions and have all of the information in a streamlined process, and so that you have more time to incorporate a work-life balance. So I have talked for 38 minutes, which is not a surprise because I'm pretty speedy talking anyway. But I wanted to show you all of the things that it can help you do. Now, I know there are a lot of questions about ethical uses of AI. And again, one of those things that we had a discussion on yesterday was if we are using AI to help us in our personal daily tasks, should we tell people that we're using AI to do those tasks? You know, that's a great question. And I guess the answer to that is it depends. One of my thoughts is this to me is like I'll call it a text calculator. I don't tell people when I'm using a calculator to do math. So if I'm using a generative AI to help me with my work, then I'm still responsible for the work. I'm using it as a tool. I'm also, the other thing that is the ethical piece for me is nothing is verbatim. I'm not using something completely and saying, oh, that's mine. The idea was mine, and I have refreshed or reformulated or finessed the information that I was given back from the AI. And then, so I have enhanced my own idea using AI. So I think that's a conversation that is going to have to continue to happen. But I think, again, it is a tool that we can use to help us become better and more productive employees. And it also helps really bring out the creativity. I taught music for 23 years. So I tend to be really creative and try to think outside the box a lot. What I found with AI is it's really giving me the ability to even expand my out of the box thinking, because it's giving me ideas, and then I take that idea and I go in a different direction, and it's really helping to get the best use of my brain in the fastest way possible. And okay, so Melody, that's a great question. And I'm going to go back to ChatGPT because I do want to show you a few more things, and I want to show you Bing. So let me reshare my screen. Okay. So we're back to this screen, and I'm going to actually click on a topic that I did yesterday. So I asked ChatGPT to gamify a lesson for music appreciation, not the cause level, you can read it. And then you can see that it created a very lovely gamified lesson that I could then take those pieces, then I would have to create that lesson inside of Canvas based on what it gave me. Much more engaging than having students read text or anything like that. But what is with this little arrow up here at the top? So if I click on this, this is the ability for me to now share the entire chat with Sherry. So Sherry wanted to know, how did I write my prompt and what did it give me back? Rather than copying and paste it, I can literally send the link to her. She can click on it, then she would be able to see it. What is the benefit of this? For faculty and for anyone else, if you want to see the progress of what ChatGPT will do, what you start with, what it gives you back, you can use copy link so that you could see the progress, and you can also see how the AI is taking your prompt and what it's giving you. You'll also notice that if you put a prompt in several times, it gives you different answers, doesn't give you the same thing. If I go back to this prompt and I scroll down to the bottom and I click on regenerate, it's going to take the same prompt and give me something different. But I still can use that link to kind of see the progress and understand how the AI works. And what that does as an instructor is it also tells me how I might want to change the way I'm wording whatever assignment or whatever prompt I'm giving the students for their work. So you have that ability. And then sometimes it will ask you how was the version? Was it better or worse than the first one? And I do provide back that information. The other thing I want to bring your attention to is over here on the right. If I were a student and I was using AI, I could now share the link to what I did in ChatGPT, as well as get a citation. So now I can get the citation that I should include ethically in the information that I'm providing back to my professor. So it will give you the citation. What you see above that, these are prompts that I use often. And rather than have to keep typing the prompt in, you can just click on create prompt, and then you can put in stuff. For example, if I click on this, what does music mean to me? This was a prompt that I have in a music class, and this is what it says. Write a warm and friendly 100-word response to the following with an open-ended question about the post. Then I copy the student's response into ChatGPT, and it provides me with a starting place on how I want to respond to the student. Again, no personal identifiable information do I ever put into ChatGPT. It's just the text from the student so that I can not sound like, hey, that's a great answer. Thanks, good job. Or can you know, that kind of helps me again with my brainstorming and things like that. So you can save your prompts if you use them, so that if I wanted to simply go over here and type in the backslash, then I can just click on any of these and it's going to put in the prompt that I just read to you. And obviously Grammarly is telling me that I need to have a hyphen in the middle of that. Thank you. So that is ChatGPT. And then over here, you can see my chat. This is your chat history. Obviously there is an upgrade to Plus, and that's ChatGPT 4. And that costs you $20 a month. Now I'm going to go, just one second. I'm going to go to Bing. And I'm going to, if you go to Bing, you can see Ask Me Anything. So I would like for somebody else to give me, yes, you have to have an account. And you have to have an account to use ChatGPT to even get into it. Yes, the person that you share it with would also need an account. Somebody give me a prompt that you would like for me to put into Bing. Somebody, anybody, what do you want ChatGPT to do for you? Give me any prompt that you would like to see how Bing works as opposed to ChatGPT. Bing uses ChatGPT 4, so it's going to use the internet as well as the text that was fed into the what I call the supercomputer. Just as a side note, OpenAI, who is the maker or owner of ChatGPT, is spending $700,000 a day to keep ChatGPT running. That is what it's costing to keep the chips that it uses to provide us all with a little help in our daily life. Okay, so I'm going to put in here and I'm going to click go. Now it's going to take a minute. And here it goes. Now, Bing also allows you to share the chat history and the prompt with someone else. So you can do that in ChatGPT, which is new, and you can also do it in Bing. Please notice that here it is giving me the websites that it used to create the information. I don't know if you were able to read, but I'll scroll back a little bit slower. It generally types faster than even I can read. So if I go back to the top of this, I can click on copy. And notice that also it allows you to add an image here. That's a new thing. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. So it's telling me that, no, I can't do that. Interesting. Now it's telling me that it wants me to join the image creator. So you can see sometimes you get a very interesting response back. If it can't do it, it will still give you an answer, which is what we call hallucinating. So generative AIs will hallucinate. They will create an answer for you, even if it isn't correct. So that's where you, as the subject matter expert, content expert, that's where you come in as the human in this, because it is up to you to understand. The ChatGPT is the one that provides the citation. That was actually a Grammarly, that's part of Grammarly. That citation, that little green thing, was Grammarly. So I have so many extensions that it's hard to tell which ones are which. So Grammarly is the extension that allowed ChatGPT to give me a citation. Now I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And I'm going to go over here. I'm going to put in the chat. That is a link to the presentation that has all of the information that I gave you. And now if there are any other questions, I would be glad to answer them. And I'll turn my camera back on because I'm not talking with my hands now. I hope this kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with ChatGPT. And I'll tell you, our students have been using this for a lot longer than we even knew it existed. This is not a new thing. We are a little late on the train. Honestly, as adults, especially at 53, I coach a esports professional team, and my 19-year-olds were like, "Well, what do you mean you don't know about this?" And I was like, "Well, what is it?" Of course, they were more than willing to tell me what it was. So the brain icon is one that is called Cider, SIDER. And Merlin is another. Those are Chrome extensions. I know somebody asked me about uploading a file.
Yes, being able to upload and update information. That was a question that was in the chat.
Yes, and you can do that. Let me start in the chat though.
While you're doing that, I am going to stop recording. And just know that I will be sending out a recording of the presentation later on today.
All right, well, it's, and that's the other thing. Sometimes ChatGPT